Oh my gosh, it's 2021 and these are what graphics still look like? So Bandai Namco and From Software finally released extended gameplay footage for From Software's upcoming hotly anticipated open world game, Elden Ring. I'm a big time Souls fan, so this has been a moment I've been waiting for a long time. So the trailer's fresh, so I thought I'd point out some interesting things I noticed in the gameplay. I hope they're interesting to you as well. I know big boys like VadiVidya have already touched on some of these, but I hope this video gets you excited for Elden Ring. So first, open world. I hate to be that guy, but Elden Ring clearly has some Breath of the Wild influences. So you've got this big old map, you got markers, and unlike a lot of open world games, one thing I thought Breath of the Wild did really well was starting you up on this plateau so you could see the entire world, find the landmark that looks most interesting to you, then say, man, I want to know what's over there. What's over there? And then you can just go and see for yourself. It's cool. You know, a lot of games they'll put like an invisible wall. You can't actually go over there. Not with that game. Clearly this is happening in Elden Ring as well. The trailer basically opens the same way I just described for Breath of the Wild. So here's our world. What looks interesting to you, guess what? You can go there. You can check that out. I'm very intrigued by this style of open world exploration. And I'm all for it, especially the hidden caves and catacombs that kind of run throughout. Oh my gosh, it's 2021 and these are what graphics still look like? These games can continue to not look graphically exciting or up to par with a lot of modern AAA releases, and I am so good with that. Personally, I love this sort of aesthetic. In fact, now that mouths move when NPCs talk, to me that's kind of lame. I like when they don't move their mouths and you just kind of hear this voice coming from their general direction. That to me is more interesting. So I very much dig this aesthetic. Every From Software game could look like Dark Souls 1 and I would have no problems with it. I'm here for the gameplay. I'm here for the world building. I'm here for the epic boss fights. The graphics to me, I don't care about them really at all whatsoever. But I do want Bloodborne at 60 FPS on PC, so please. One thing I disliked about Breath of the Wild is even though you could cook, crafting felt kind of weak. Like, I want to make arrows and other supplies and you can make, you can cook stuff, but in Elden Ring it says, yo, here's some pickups, here's some stuff you can use for crafting, go make it. I'm sure you're going to be able to buy arrows or whatever from a merchant, but being able to craft on the go, that to me is an exciting quality of life feature. And I noticed when you jump into the start menu here, it seems like the game actually pauses, like it doesn't have like a persistent gameplay state underneath. Like you can look at the map and the game stops while you're in that start menu, which is different from previous games. I'm curious if you're gonna be able to craft healing items or if you're like locked to whatever you recharge your Estus flask or whatever it's gonna be in this game when you rest. And I'm equally curious about finding weapon upgrades, like can I find mobs in one location? And are they always gonna have like these things and maybe there's a really low drop rate? How are those enemies gonna recharge? Like, are they gonna come back every time I rest at these little bonfire safe spots, or like, what's that gonna look like? Early in the trailer, the player rides by this like little caravan. And from what I recall in early interviews, you can ride by those or attack them, take the goods. There, I think, are other more aggressive patrols, but I'm curious why this caravan is here. Like, why this location? Does the day-night cycle allow for always knowing at, I don't know, like 2 to 4 p.m., a caravan's gonna travel from here to here. You always know one's gonna be there that you can go raid. How's that gonna work? I don't know. And this dragon that attacks a player, is it random? Is it scripted? Why is there a dragon here? What happens if you're low level and you're garbage at the game? Is it gonna chase you? Maybe it's defending this area. So a little quick analysis, you can see it fly through some cloud cover here once you get close to this little bonfire. But if you look on the left, there's like this ruin over here. It's what the player's close to. So maybe this dragon is defending that ruin. But there's also an egg here. See this freaking eggs? What was this, a dragon egg? Is this a giant mushroom puffball? What is it? What is this? Another thing I noticed in this dragon fight here is the Elden Ring capitalizes on Sekiro having that like final blow mechanic. You can see that with the dragon fight, kind of like, yeah, put my sword in your eye. But it also looks like the dragon survives. So maybe it's gonna fly away. Maybe it's gonna come back throughout the game and you have to refight it, kind of like the Pursuer in Dark Souls 2. One other thing to note is because of the varying terrain, you'll have plenty of methods of attacking enemies. So you could go in head first, or you could jump up on a rock, split the group of mobs, focus down one at a time. I think that's one of the advantages of an open world game like this. There's a lot of different ways to approach a problem, and solve it. No more of these like invisible walls or chains that are in the way. They don't let you move around. Like it's less of a focus on the one-on-one kind of thing and more on, hey, here's a lot of different ways you can use the environment to your advantage. And sort of on that same idea of combat, I like the idea of the horse. I'm just gonna call it Yakul, like a Princess Mononoke. But I remember when I first saw Sekiro gameplay, I thought, I don't know, the grapple hook, the movement, they're cool, it's interesting, but it seems like you'd be too reliant on it. Like I'm always looking for somewhere to grapple or just want to jump. And I like the claustrophobic tunnels and the spaces in Souls games. It's like you don't really have anywhere to go. You have to make the best of your situation. And ultimately, when Sekiro came out, the grapple hook was awesome. You could jump, and that's awesome. It made for these like really cool moments where you could escape combat, to get away, to heal, to run over, to slaughter a weaker mob, kill mobs one by one, combat, and then you can just go on to face that like mini boss samurai guy. So with the Yakul, I was kind of worried when I first saw it that it'd be kind of like how in Arkham Knight, you're like very reliant on the Batmobile. There's a lot of missions where you have to use it to complete an objective, and it's cool to drive. You can kind of like launch yourself out of it. It's awesome, but it only gave you one way to complete certain missions. And having a variety of options, I think, has always been a big highlight of these From Software games. Instead of forcing you into, you have to do it this way, it says, look, you can do it however you want. I think because From Software is already good at making games that give you lots of ways to be successful, I don't think you're gonna have a situation where like, I have to use the Yakul. I think you could choose to use the Yakul. I imagine that it's not even that advantageous because it kind of looks like the attacks you can do are sort of limited. So, I mean, you could kite this dragon and just shoot magic at it until it dies. If that's how you want to play, go for it. That seems kind of lame to me, but maybe that's the kind of playstyle you want. But I think that this won't copy that Arkham Knight formula where you have to do something a certain way. I think you could choose to do it that way. Maybe that's not the best way to do it, but that's the way you want to do it, so you get to do that. In other recent From Software games, magic hasn't necessarily been tied to weapons, and I'm very much a give me some steel, and I'm going to use that to fight with. But weapons have always had their own unique flourishes, so I'm excited to see how each weapon uses the different weapon style arts, especially because Miyazaki has said that you're going to have to find these hidden weapon arts throughout the land, and that's really cool. So just watching the gameplay and the combat, I've also noticed in this trailer, there's a lot of reliance from the player character to use these weapon arts. So in a lot of earlier moments in this trailer, most of the engagements start with the player using some kind of summon or weapon skill. And I don't love using summons in these kinds of games, unless I'm like hard stuck on a boss or an area, in which case I'm like, yeah, I need some help here. But again, I don't think this is the kind of game that's going to force you into a certain playstyle. So just some things I noticed that I thought were interesting about this trailer. Pot Boy. So when I first saw Pot Boy, I thought, yeah, I love Pot Boy. I want more Pot Boy. Then in this trailer, the Pot Boy talks. So I think, who's inside the pot? Like, how do you even get that lid off? And then he's like, hit me, I can take it. And I'm like, oh man, he's gonna break Pot Boy. And then the guy inside is gonna be like, oh, thank you. But no, when he hits him, Pot Boy was the guy who was talking. It was actually the pot. So I thought that's fun. It kind of reminded me of one of the Onion Knights from the Souls games. I'm wondering if this Pot Boy will be similar too. In an older trailer, you can see a few different Pot Boys. So are they a race of Pot Boy creatures? Are they all sentient or are some of them bad? What if you stumble upon a family of Pot Boys or like a village of Pot Boys? Imagine if you could summon a whole army of Pot Boys. Like I would just be like the Pot Boy guy. You know what I mean? Like I would probably try to find some kind of like Pot Boy armor somewhere, and then I'm gonna be the Pot Boy, you know what I mean? But I also wonder what's inside the pot. You know how like you see a turtle and you're like, what's a turtle look like underneath the turtle shell? That's kind of how I feel about the Pot Boy. Like what happens if you break the pot? What's inside the pot? I'm guessing Elden Ring will have some kind of stat system like the other Souls games. I think I'd seen this in an interview. And I don't think they'd have just like a stealth stat. Like in Dark Souls 2, you had to put so many points into, it was essentially so you could get more invincibility frames when you roll. Drink your Estus faster. It was really stupid. That was the only purpose of that stat. So I don't think that they would do that in this game. I think if you had a stat that governed how stealthy you are, how visible you are to other mobs, I would think that would be tied into something like dexterity. Might affect how fast you swing, how fast you switch between weapons, the damage that a dexterity focused weapon would do. And then maybe it would also affect how visible you are to enemies, that kind of thing. I imagine that's what it would look like. I don't think it would just be some kind of like straight up vague, unhelpful stealth stat, but we'll see. What's under the trees? Man, I know that there's parts of this from interviews and other trailers, but I gotta know what's under the tree. Like, what's next to this tree, man? Like, right here, there's this big giant next to the tree, so maybe there's like a bunch of big bad mobs around the area. Maybe there's like this big boss fight in the center. I don't know, I love the idea that I can see this tree from so far away and then I can go explore it. Everyone loves a second phase boss. Like, just when you think you've beat Father Gascoigne, now he's a werewolf. And same thing here with this demigod boss fight. Now, he started off with this big old arm, but now he's got a dragon head for an arm. Yeah. So these demigod fights, they look like they're gonna have lots of big epic arenas and lots of big phase transformations. I'm looking forward to that. That's always cool to see how the boss changes, and I think it would be really sweet if we saw some more kinds of like not only boss fight transformations, but also like the whole area you're fighting changes too. Also, just want to point out there's an obligatory poison swamp here. This shot, obviously it's a poison swamp down there, right? So this shot reminds me a lot of when you're looking out from like that undead village in Dark Souls 3, you're looking out towards the cathedral and the swamps of Faerun. So yeah, there's gonna be a swamp area. There's always a swamp area in these games. So I normally don't do these preview reaction videos. I normally make video essays, like this 37-minute Xenoblade Chronicles analysis. But if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, check out my other stuff. I do videos on how to beat and manage your video game backlog. I have some guides for a couple different games. So appreciate you watching, and yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Beyond the fog, I am Melina.